the ACLU yesterday filed a lawsuit against the Obama administration over its dragnet collection of logs of domestic phone calls, contending that the once secret program is illegal and asking a judge to stop it and order the records purged. Also, 86 different civil liberties groups have demanded an end to the NSA spying with an online petition that has been put on the website of the Electronic Frontier Foundation. Rainey Reitman from the EFF joins me now. Welcome to the Big 550 KTRS.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So what is it that you want the NSA to do, to stop all spying on Americans?
Well, I think the very first thing we have to do before we start talking about what reforms are necessary is find out what's actually going on. There have been so many different reports and so many different suggestions about the extent of domestic spying going on. So to what extent is the National Security Agency collecting information on Americans who aren't accused of any crime? I think what we need is for Congress to start off by having a special congressional committee, something that's going to investigate what's going on, make public the degree of the domestic spying, and then put forth a series of legislative reforms so we can ensure this never happens again.
You know, yesterday, Google and Facebook and Microsoft asked the government for permission to reveal details about the classified requests that they have received for the personal information of some of their users as well. So the backlash has been building from various different sectors across the country. Do you think that the government is going to yield on any of this?
Well, I think that what we're going to see right away is a whole bunch of legislation get introduced, and I'm thinking we're going to see bills dropping this week and next week to try to adjust parts of the Patriot Act that were used to force Verizon to turn over phone records in a secret court. The Section 215 of the Patriot Act is something that has been controversial for years. Among other things, my organization, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, has been suing the government to find out what legal interpretation they're using of that section of the Patriot Act. Our belief is that if the government's got a legal interpretation of that particular part of the bill that says that they might, for example, be able to collect dragnet surveillance on domestic communications, then we would have a right to know that. And now, with the most recent revelations, I think that we even now more than ever, we need to know the truth about what's going on.
How long has the EFF suspected this sort of activity was going on?
Oh, we were contacted by a whistleblower in 2006, Mark Klein, who had been a former AT&T technician, and he gave us schematics and blueprints and details from AT&T's Folsom Street facility in San Francisco. And that was when we first began a lawsuit to try to push back against spying by the National Security Agency. Needless to say, we have been very excited to see all of this extensive evidence finally surface, and we're evaluating how that's going to affect our lawsuits against the government and against people assisting in this kind of surveillance.
Yeah, what has happened with the lawsuits that you have filed? Have they gone anywhere?
So we have a sort of 3 active lawsuits now. The first lawsuit we had filed against AT&T for their role in assisting the government in this kind of spying. We also have an active case against the National Security Agency, which we filed a couple years later for this kind of spying, so I think in 2008. And then we have two lawsuits that are FOIA lawsuits. So they're trying to get transparency about what the government is actually doing. And so we're, right now with these new revelations, the government has pushed back and asked for more time in one of those lawsuits, and sort of we're going to be evaluating, how is this new evidence going to affect those lawsuits? Is it going to be a total game changer? And I think that's something we're looking into.
Rainey, do you think, contrary to what the president said the other day in his press conference, that they're not just collecting data, but they're actually listening to the content of our calls?
No, I do not think that. I don't. I don't think they're listening to the content of our phone calls. But I think we should be worried anyway, because at the end of the day, exactly who you're calling and how often you're making those phone calls and how long those phone calls last and information about the location of the phone, that's the kind of data that it's really not necessary for the government to be collecting, and it's invasive at its heart. There's been this presumption that one must try to come up with reasons why that would be invasive. It's invasive at its heart to have a map of all of the phone calls you make and all of the and how long they are and other data about your phone calling history. It's if we're going to engage in that kind of surveillance, we really need a pretty strong judicial oversight to ensure that we're doing it when we believe crimes might be taking place, not just on every single person all the time, everywhere.
Yep, and certainly under the Fourth Amendment, you would think that you need a warrant for it, and a warrant that has to be approved and seen publicly, not done secretly in some secret court somewhere.
Right, and then not even be willing to discuss what legal interpretation you're using to try and get access to that. So that's exactly our point. The website we've launched, EFF actually isn't hosting this. Mozilla, the makers of Firefox, have worked with us to build this website, and we launched it yesterday. It's called stopwatching.us. So stopwatching.us. Mm-hmm. It's got over 27,000 people who signed it last night after we had launched it only a few hours, calling for legislative reform, for full accounting to the public of this spying, and then to hold the public officials accountable who allowed this to take place.
Rainey Reitman, Activism Director for the Electronic Frontier Foundation. Again, you can see the petition at stopwatching.us. Thanks for joining me, Rainey.
Thank you so much.
I'm Paul Harris. This is the Big 550 KTRS.